As someone who has spent countless hours between Destiny and Warframe, you could say that I'm a bit of a fan of the looter shooter genre. The First Descendant is a new game in this sphere with a release date of soon TM. There's a crossplay beta coming up September 19th, and I'm looking forward to playing it after having seen so many videos. The game looks like it could be a lot of fun, but I have my reservations and I want to discuss them a bit. To start off, we got to talk about what the game is. As I already mentioned, it's a looter shooter, and that's exactly what it sounds like. You shoot stuff, and then you loot stuff. The appeal of this genre is the seemingly never-ending loot treadmill. You're always doing stuff to get the next best weapon or to improve your loadout in some way. In the First Descendant, you play as, you guessed it, a Descendant, and your job is to fight for the survival of humanity. The different Descendants all have unique abilities that allow you to run solo or co-op content, and it's up to 4-player co-op in which you can team up together to fight giant bosses, which is pretty typical for these kinds of games. The game calls itself a next-gen looter shooter as it's developed in Unreal Engine 5, which is why it looks so good visually. Before I get into why I'm concerned about the future of the game, I want to talk about why I'm excited to play it. To me, as a fan of the looter shooter genre, it's always exciting when we get new games entering the arena because it drives innovation. These games usually require a lot of time, and so the developers want to keep us playing, and if another game is doing something better, they'll hopefully try to compete and better their game as well. Because these games require so much time, it's not uncommon to burn out and get tired of playing the game after weeks of grinding. This has been my experience with both Destiny and Warframe, which is another reason that I'm excited for this. A properly made game could be a fun distraction from getting burnt out in the other games. From what I've seen, this plays a lot like Warframe in that it's third person, you have unique characters, and the rune system in the game is similar to mods in Warframe which let you further customize your weapons and character. I use Warframe as an example because not only is it in the same genre, but the characters in the First Descendant function a lot like the Warframes. They each have 4 abilities and a passive, and each character has its own base look and playstyle. All of these similarities to Warframe isn't to say that this game is a copy-paste of any of the other ones, but that it should be somewhat familiar to fans of the genre. Iterating on these things that make other games great is a good step to differentiating your own game. Specifically, this game has shown off snippets of massive bosses with some really cool looking mechanics, and I'm here for it. It kind of reminds me of a Destiny dungeon boss or something in that vein, maybe a little closer to Final Fantasy XIV as you're dodging arena sweeping abilities and moves. The bosses are huge, and so far the fights look flashy and chaotic, but in a good way. If they play as good as they look, I'm sure it'll be a great time. Also, being as the game is developed in Unreal Engine 5, it looks incredible, and I'll admit, I'm a sucker for good graphics. Obviously, graphics alone won't make the game good, but it's a big plus for me. Now that I've explained some of the reasons that I can't wait to get my hands on this game, I want to talk about why myself and so many others are skeptical of how this game will perform. The first Mount Everest-sized red flag is that the game is published by Nexon. If you're not familiar, Nexon has a track record of shutting down their games relatively quickly due to low player counts or other excuses. They also heavily monetize their games to the point of driving out their main player base, which is why the games fail, and then they use lower player count as an issue instead of using a little introspection and realizing that they're the ones ruining their own games. I used to play Vindictus, which is an MMO published by Nexon, and that game feels like a husk of what it used to be, as it's now primarily a cash shop just to sell waifu cosmetics. The next red flag is that it's going to be free to play. It's true that there are games that are free to play that have been well done and don't have predatory microtransactions, but that feels increasingly rare now. It seems that more often than not, free to play is used as a justification to have really shitty monetization practices, and I wouldn't be surprised to see some pay for progression or some sort of boosters in the shop. In September of 2022, in an interview with the lead producer, they were asked, how are you approaching monetization for the First Descendant as a free to play game? Will you charge for specific characters, stages, or gear? The developer then responded with, I believe that many players are curious and concerned about this. Since we have been running on the same track and direction since the beginning of development, we were surprised to see that after our game reveal, many players were concerned about the excessive pay-to-win aspects of Nexon's games. Ultimately, we aspire not to pursue excessive pay-to-win aspects. The monetization model will also not deviate significantly from games of the same genre. Paid products will indeed exist, but the characters, equipment, and stages that are needed for gameplay and progress in the game can be earned through gameplay. If this is to be believed, we can use games in the same genre as a baseline. Destiny 2, for example, has paid seasons that include a battle pass, they have paid armor and weapon cosmetics, emotes, and mounts, to name a few. Warframe similarly has weapon and armor cosmetics, but the seasonal battle passes are free. Warframe also lets you skip the grind by buying new frames outright with their Prime access, or by paying for convenience to skip build times. So, at the very least, we can expect paid outfits and gun skins. Whether or not the game includes a battle pass is yet to be seen, but I wouldn't be surprised. We might see some pay for convenience things, as is common with modern gaming, in which case the developers will make some part of the game really tedious in the hopes that we'll end up paying to skip it. Going back to the quote from the developer, but the characters, equipment, and stages that are needed for gameplay and progress in the game can be earned through gameplay. Fellas, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a damn duck. The amount of times that I've heard this from a developer just for them to drop the most tedious and frustrating grind known to man is just ridiculous. Who remembers playing Rainbow Six Siege with the operator system? If you played the game, remember what it was like to grind out a character? Sure, I mean, you could play 12 to 25 hours just to unlock one character, or why not just give us $5? See the problem? They make the game tedious so that you go, I guess $5 isn't so bad, and now you're paying. The last reason that makes me concerned is that historically, new looter shooters just don't have enough staying power. Off the top of my head are Anthem and Outriders. Granted, those aren't popular for different reasons, but there's still games in the genre that have been forgotten by most. If the First Descendant doesn't differentiate itself enough, I can see it going the way of Anthem in that it'll be forgotten months after release with a downward player count, and unless it makes money, it'll just get shut down. I know I sound pretty pessimistic and cynical, but I'm basing it all off of precedent. You mix free-to-play with over-the-top monetization, and that's already a problem, but throw in a publisher with a track record of shutting games down for not hitting metrics and for milking their player base's wallets, and you have a recipe for disaster. Overall though, I'm excited for this game as another looter shooter that enters the arena, and I want to see it succeed because what I've seen so far looks really fun, but I'm worried that it will fail due to corporate greed like many other games of its kind. The game looks great in many ways, but it's free to play and published by Nexon, which already does not have a good track record. I'm just worried that the negatives will outweigh the positives, but until we get our hands on it, I'm going to keep huffing that high-grade copium. With that being said, feel free to drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and let me know if you're looking forward to playing the First Descendant during their crossplay beta. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.